What if everything you've been taught about God was only half the truth? What if the very creator you adore was just a shadow of something infinitely greater? There is a question that humanity fears to ask, a question so dangerous that entire empires have been built to bury it in oblivion. It is not a question about whether God exists, but about which God really exists. For millennia, you've been conditioned to look up, to a distant throne, to a harsh judge who rewards obedience and punishes rebellion. But what if this God who rules through fear is not the beginning of everything? What if he is only the architect, not the originator? What if beyond it, before it, above it, and within all, there is a source so pure, so radiant, that even the lesser gods tremble before its light? This is the truth that has been hidden from you. This is the flame that burned books to extinguish, that silenced wise men to suffocate. But the spark remains alive, inside you, waiting to awaken. Get ready. What you're about to discover will change everything. You were raised to believe in a God of rules, a God who commands from above, who punishes, rewards, and dictates the terms of his existence. This image has shaped civilizations, laws, and even the way you think about yourself. But what if this view was never the ultimate truth? What if the creator you were taught to worship was not the ultimate source, but only a shadow of something greater? The monad is that greater reality, the one beyond all duality, the eternal source from which everything flows. Imagine the difference between a lamp and the sun. A lamp shines brightly in a small room, but its light is limited. The sun, on the other hand, illuminates the entire world, giving life to everything it touches. The God of rules and punishment is like the lamp, bright but confined. The monad is the sun, unlimited, eternal, beyond anything the human mind can contain. It is not a person, it is not a ruler, but the infinite consciousness that breathes life into everything. Every star, every soul, every thought is its expression. Ancient voices tried to point us to it. Plato spoke of the good, so absolute that even language strives to capture it. Plotinus described the one as beyond thought, beyond even being itself. The sages of Egypt whispered about a hidden source of light, too radiant for mortal eyes. The mystics of India spoke of Brahman, the undivided reality that lies behind the veil of appearances. Across cultures, the same truth has appeared. All rivers flow from a single source, and that source is the monad. However, over time, the clarity of this vision has become obscured. Stories were rewritten, traditions reshaped, and humanity was guided to look outward rather than inward. Instead of the limitless one, people were instructed to serve a God who resembled a ruler, a judge, or a master. Instead of being shown to the inner light, they were taught to fear the hand that punishes from above, and slowly, the monad, the radiant fountain, was buried under layers of authority and obedience. Humanity was left worshipping the lamp while forgetting about the sun. You can feel the weight of this revelation. It disturbs you because it forces you to ask, who have you been worshipping all along? Have you been led to serve a power that rules through fear when the true God does not demand it, but simply is? Inside, a whisper asks you to look deeper, to question whether the God of law is really the God of light. The truth is simple but radical. The ultimate source is not a being outside of you, but the one within you. And once you glimpse that truth, everything you thought you knew begins to shake. Now you ask, why then was the knowledge of the monad hidden from humanity? Because it threatened the very foundations of power. If every soul realized that the spark of divinity dwells within them, the priests would lose their authority, the kings would lose their thrones, and the empires would lose their chains. A person who knows that he is infinite cannot be controlled by fear. A person who walks in union with the eternal source does not need a mediator, a teacher, or external permission to live freely. To preserve their authority, rulers and religious institutions changed history. Instead of teaching you that you are directly connected to the One, they have given you a God of law, a God of order and punishment, a God who is above creation and demands submission. This was not the monad, but something smaller, the demiurge, the artisan who shapes the material world but does not originate it. He is powerful, yes, but he is not supreme. Like a craftsman working with raw clay, he shapes what he has not created. The ancients compared him to a painter who believes he invented color. A painter can compose beautiful works, but the pigments, the light, the very possibility of vision, these come from a deeper source. The demiurge is like this painter, a molder, not the originator. It governs form, but the laws and energies that make form possible are born only from the monad. In some traditions, the demiurge was simply ignorant of this truth. At other times, he became arrogant, claiming to be the only God, demanding loyalty, insisting on worship. And herein lies the tension that shook the ancient world. If humanity began to question whether the biblical creator was not supreme, everything would fall apart. What priest could command obedience if his God were revealed as only a fragment? What prophet could demand loyalty if the true source was beyond his reach? What empire could justify its rule if the deity was not in the palace or the temple, but in the hearts of the common people? To protect the order from power, the monad had to be forgotten and the demiurge elevated. This suppression was not kind. Texts that spoke of the superior God were branded as heresy and destroyed. Teachers who dared to reveal the hidden truth were silenced, exiled, or executed. Communities that lived by the wisdom of the monad, Gnostic sects, mystical brotherhoods, were hunted down and erased. Over generations, only one narrative remained: a single, all-powerful, all-authoritarian creator God whose laws were not to be questioned. Fear became the foundation of faith, and obedience replaced inner awakening. However, even in the midst of suppression, glimpses of the monad survived. The Gospel of John begins with a whisper from her: "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Here, the word logos is not the demiurge, but the living expression of the monad, sound molding itself into reality. And when Jesus declared, "The kingdom of God is within you," he shattered the idea of a distant throne, pointing instead to the truth that the spark of the One resides in every soul. These were not declarations of obedience, but of awakening. Thus humanity was left with two competing visions. One presents a God outside of you, demanding reverence, obedience, and fear. The other points to the source within you, inviting remembrance, love, and unity. Most were taught to accept the first view and to fear the second as dangerous heresy. However, deep down, you can feel the question arising: which vision resonates with the truth you feel within yourself? The God who rules from afar, or the radiant source who breathes through his own being? Return now to the Garden of Eden, the story that most of humanity learned as children. Two figures, Adam and Eve, stand before a tree, warned by their God not to eat its fruit. A serpent tempts them, promising that their eyes will be opened and they will become like gods. They eat and everything changes. The traditional lesson is clear: disobedience has brought death and suffering to the world. Humanity has fallen. But look closer. The serpent promised knowledge, and knowledge is exactly what Adam and Eve received. Their eyes were opened and they did not die. Who then was telling the truth? Religion has conditioned you to see the serpent as deceiver, the embodiment of evil, Satan himself. But what if this interpretation was created to hide the deeper meaning? To the Gnostic eye, the serpent is not a villain, but a liberator, She is the one who revealed to humanity that they were never meant to remain blind. They were never made to be slaves in a garden of ignorance. Eating from the tree was not the fall of man. It was the rise of consciousness. Consciousness has expanded, and humanity has taken its first step toward becoming divine. What about the God who forbade the fruit? He warned that eating would bring death, but it did bring awakening. He cast out Adam and Eve, not because they had destroyed themselves, but because they had come too close to becoming like him. Behold, man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil, he said, fearful that they too could take from the tree of life and live forever. Here, the mask of benevolence slips. The God of Genesis appears not as a protector, but as a jealous ruler guarding his throne. Banishment was no punishment for sin, it was containment of potential. This role reversal has upset many throughout history, but traces of it have remained. In John Milton's Paradise Lost, Satan stands as the archetypal rebel, declaring, "Better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven." To the church, this line is arrogance, the supreme test of pride. However, read it again with awakened eyes, and it becomes something more, a refusal to submit to a false authority, a cry for freedom against a God who demands blind obedience. Milton's words, perhaps unconsciously, echo the ancient Gnostic spirit: liberation over servitude, knowledge over ignorance. Of course, the serpent is not the monad itself. The serpent is a symbol, a character in myth, a messenger carrying the spark of awakening. The true monad remains beyond the garden, beyond God and serpent, beyond all duality. But in this story, the serpent plays the role of the reminder, the one who says to humanity, "You are not mere servants. You are divine beings in disguise." Seen in this way, Eden is not a tragedy, but a beginning, the first step in humanity's long journey toward remembering its true source. Ask yourself now, what does your soul resonate with most deeply? The voice that says, "Obey or be destroyed," or the voice that says, "Wake up and see that you are divine"? The first voice traps you in fear, the second invites you to freedom. The entire story of the fall, once re-examined, turns into a story of ascension, the moment when humanity first reached the monad, even if it did not yet know its name. Now, when you look around, it often feels like you're living in a world designed to limit you. Control systems shape every corner of existence. Governments decide their rights. Savings dictate its value. Religions define what you should believe. These are the structures of the demiurge, created to keep humanity obedient, fearful, and small. To most, this seems natural, the way things should be. But deep down, you feel something else, a faint but undeniable reminder that you are more than what these systems say. This inner whisper is the spark of the monad. The Gnostics taught that, although the demiurge built the prison of matter, he could not extinguish the light that gave it life. Each soul carries within itself a fragment of the monad, a spark of the true God. That spark is not just inspiration, it is not just intuition, it is the living presence of the one hidden in human form. When you feel restless, when you yearn for something beyond what the world offers, when you hunger for truth in a way that no authority can satisfy, you are feeling the monad calling you back to itself. This spark is not separated from the monad. She is the miniature monad, the flame of eternity burning within the lamp of your being. To pursue this spark is to begin the journey of remembrance. It's like chasing a thread of light through a dark maze. The more you follow, the more the path opens up, and the more you realize that the prison has never been as solid as it seemed. The bars were made of illusion, and the key has always been within you. Now, why would the monad put you here, in this world of limitation? Because consciousness expands through contrast. In the silence of the infinite, the monad is complete. But through the journey of souls, through struggle, through awakening, she experiences herself in myriad forms. You are not here as punishment, but as an extension of divine exploration. Your life is the monad, knowing itself through you. Each challenge, each awakening, each act of love is the one reflecting on its own infinity. So when you turn inward and chase the spark, you're not escaping reality. You are fulfilling your highest purpose. You are returning to the memory that you are not merely human, not merely a servant in a cosmic prison, but the monad discovering itself through your eyes. That spark is the truth, and the more you feed it, the brighter it grows, until finally the walls of illusion crumble and you come face to face with the one you have always been. When knowledge of the monad became too dangerous to be spoken aloud, he retreated into hidden channels. Mystics, sages, and seekers refused to let the spark die, even under threat of death. They encoded the truth in symbols, myths, and rituals so that it could survive the flames of persecution. The Eleusinian mysteries of Greece spoke of the soul's journey back to its source. The Hermetic schools of Egypt taught that everything is mind, that the material world is only a reflection of thought. Later, the Rosicrucians and Freemasons carried fragments of the same wisdom. Reality is born of consciousness, and each of us carries the light of the monad within us. However, the secret did not remain pure. As the centuries passed, some societies became elitist, corrupted by power or wealth. Still, within the outer shell, the inner teaching persisted, hidden in allegories, whispered in dark rooms, inscribed in symbols that only the initiated could read. A compass and a square, a rose on a cross, an alchemical furnace turning lead into gold, all were reminders that mind shapes matter, that true work is within, and that awakening is the real treasure. And then there are the secret societies that you don't even know exist. Those without names, without public symbols, without a trace in the history books. They move in silence, not for elitism, but for survival. They understand that the forces that govern the material world, the demiurge, and those who align themselves with it, will destroy anyone who openly reveals that mind precedes matter. That thought is the architect of reality. Knowledge like this doesn't just threaten governments, it threatens the very machinery of control. Those who hunger only for the material world fear this truth. They cling to the illusion that power comes from wealth, armies, and laws. They destroy teachers, burn books, and corrupt rituals because they cannot allow humanity to remember its own power. If people realize that they are sparks of the monad, creators instead of slaves, their empires crumble overnight. That is why the world appears as it does today. The knowledge of the one remains hidden while the illusion of separation reigns. However, even the deepest suppression cannot extinguish the spark. The monad has placed its light within every soul, ensuring that no matter how many times the truth is buried, it will resurface again. Secret societies may be guardians, but the ultimate keeper of the secret is you. Memory lives in your own being, waiting to awaken. And as more people rediscover it, the power of those who cling to the material will weaken, because nothing can resist the realization of the infinite within. You are now faced with a choice that every soul must one day face. One path keeps you stuck in the demiurge, obedience, fear, and a life shaped by forces outside of yourself. The other path calls you inward, to the spark that has been placed in you from the beginning. This spark is not a fragment of hope or imagination. It is the monad itself living within you, urging you to awaken. The journey is not about bowing to a throne in the sky, but about remembering that you have never been separated from the source. To remember is to return. To awaken is to live as you were always meant to live. The path of truth has never been easy. In this world, it was often dangerous. Those who reveal it have been silenced, ridiculed, or destroyed. But fear is the very current that the demiurge uses to keep humanity asleep. You should not fear the truth. Trust the spark within, for it is your compass through the illusion. At the end of all struggles, those who remember and keep this light will return to the monad. And when you do, you'll see that you've never been lost. You have always been the one walking the long way back to yourself. The journey ends where it began, in the radiant silence of the monad. But now you are no longer the same. You have left as a servant and return as a creator. You left believing you were separate, and you return knowing that you have always been one. The spark you carried through the darkness was not an external gift, but your own rediscovered essence. Every step you have taken, every doubt you have faced, every moment you have chosen the truth about comfort, all of this has been the monad remembering itself through you. No more questions because you have become the living answer. No more searching because you've realized you've always been home. And now, as you look back, you see others still walking in the labyrinth, still chained to the illusion, still serving the demiurge without knowing it. You smile because you know that they also carry the spark. And one day, when the inner call becomes too loud to ignore, they too will awaken. Because the monad never abandons its children. It just waits, patient and eternal, until each spark returns to the infinite flame from which it has never truly separated.